Hi my lovelies, welcome to the channel. I was gonna say if you're new here, but everyone's new here. This is the first video. So I thought a good place to start would be a wrap up because they're some of my favorite videos to watch. I think it's a good place to figure out if my reading taste aligns with yours. So you can discover a little bit about me and hopefully you find something new to love. I read 14 books in May. I had a 5-star, which we love to see it. The first book I read was Impromptu Match by Lily Main. It was a 4.25. I really enjoyed this. I was feeling kind of slumpy before I read this, and I just really needed an novel, something light and fun and gay, and it was everything that I could have asked for and more. It wasn't a super serious book. There wasn't a ton of emotional depth or anything. I think it was there, but it didn't really hit for me. Not in a bad way, it's just it didn't really invoke a ton of feelings in me. It didn't make me feel anything too heavy. It didn't make me cry or anything. But I had such a good time with this that it was just exactly what I was needing. It was something light and fluffy and fun. Basically, the plot for Impromptu Match is there's this human, his name's Taylor. He works a very boring office job. He used to have a job that he loved, but he kind of lost himself at some point. I think it was due to a past relationship. I could be wrong on that, so don't quote me. But he lost himself a little bit. He got stuck. And one day, he falls asleep at the office, and he finds his way down to a monster wrestling ring run by this guy named Holt. And Holt thinks that he is a prostitute, initially, that he hired as a sad office worker. So when he realizes that he's not this shapeshifter monster and he's actually a human that's walked into this monster ring that they have, he's terrified because nobody knows that this exists. But they meet, they connect, and they fall in love with each other, and it is just such a nice read. It's nothing emotionally that's really gonna stand out to me, but it was just so fun and it was just so easy to binge and get lost in. I think I finished this in a day or two, and then I finished book 2, which I'll talk about in a second, in the same day. So this was just so fun. It was a 4.25 and I would highly recommend this. So the next book that I read in May was Clean Finish, also by Lily Main. It was the second book in that monster series and it was phenomenal. It was my first 5-star that I was happy to read. Because you know how it is. Sometimes there's 5 stars that make you depressed and you give them 5 stars because they rip your heart out of your chest. But this one was my first happy 5-star. It was my first 5-star of the year that I just got lost in, that I had so much fun with, that I cried to because it just made me feel so much and I felt so hard for the characters. Even though it wasn't sad, it was just so cute that it made me cry. So Clean Finish basically follows Larkin, and he is Holt from book 1's assistant. And he, in book 1, you see him, he's a very sexual character. He is very flirty with the other wrestlers, which, by the way, in book 1, I didn't really mention this, but there's a lot of wrestlers that we get to meet, and most of them, if not all of them, are going to get books down the line. So I think there's 4 books out now. I don't know which characters those follow. But this one, Clean Finish, follows Holt's assistant, Larkin, who is Faye, and he comes across very sexual. He comes across very in your face with how thirsty he is for all of these men. But in reality, he is actually a virgin. So we see him very scared. He's talked a big game and he doesn't really know what to do now because he's getting offers from all of these wrestlers that are interested in him, but he doesn't know anything. So enter Seb. He is Holt's bodyguard, and he is a big werewolf, and he's very big and beefy, but he's very quiet, and he loves a crossword puzzle, and it's everything. He's very safe, he's very kind, he's just very quiet. He's like an old man, but he's hot, and he's a werewolf. So Larkin decides, Seb is safe. Let me ask him to teach me. Let me ask him to help me get more comfortable with intimacy with other people. And I'm not gonna give anything else, but it was so good. It was so good, and I would highly recommend this series because this was just everything I needed and wanted and more, and it was just everything, you know. So please pick this up. Please pick up Impromptu Match and then read Clean Finish because Clean Finish is everything. And yeah, so Clean Finish, 5 stars. It was amazing. Please Please read this. It was so good. Okay. The next 4 books that I read this month were the Lark Morgan series by J.C. Mackenzie. So these books, in order, I rated the prequel, which is the first book, 3.75. I rated book 1 4 stars, book 2 4 stars, and then book 3, the final book, I rated that 3.5 stars. So basically the premise for this series, we get a prequel first, which I honestly was so pleasantly surprised by the prequel, because typically with novellas, I struggle with them a little bit. I feel like you can't get enough depth, you can't get enough anything to really get attached to the characters. Any kind of relationship that happens in them feels too insta-lovey. Nothing in novellas previously, unless it's something kind of like you've gotten a romance before and then you get a novella for them, that works for me. But if it's nothing that's been established before, I really struggle with novellas. But this is the first one that I thought was executed so well. So basically, in this novella, you meet Lark Morgan, and she's a necromancer. So she basically, necromancers, witches, people with power in this world, they are accepted, but they have a hard time getting jobs, so they usually work for contract companies, and then if people need them, they can hire them. So Lark works with the police department mainly. Sometimes her job involves being hired by people who want to connect with their family members who have passed away, and then other times she works with police during murder cases so that they can resurrect the murder victim and find out who killed them. In Death Stealer, we see Lark, and she is hired by the police to investigate a murder. And in there, we meet Detective Kang, who is broody, he's angry. We also meet his partner, whose name I am forgetting and I cannot find. And he is the golden retriever, he's Sunshine, he's the good cop to Kang's bad cop. And so we meet them, we see how they interact, and then we also see her trying to figure out who murdered this woman. So that's where the prequel starts us off. Then, in the first book, I can't really give anything else because it'll spoil things if you haven't read the prequel, but it basically follows the same thing. We interact more with Lark, we see where she's going, we see her interact with more with the detectives, we see her solve more cases, and then along the way, she is recruited by the head vampire in their city because he has a job for her. So throughout the books, I didn't know who she was going to end up with. I had a feeling. It's set up to end a certain way, but you know, a girl can dream. There's a couple people that I really wanted her to end up with, but in the end I was happy with who it was. But the only thing that I think I maybe had a problem with throughout these books is that I never really felt anything. So during the prequel, I was really enjoying it. I was hooked. I was eating it up. But I didn't feel anything. We were getting all of these things that should have made me feel something, but I just didn't really feel an emotional connection to it. But I just kept going and I couldn't put it down. I was just having such a good time with it, so I didn't really care. But towards the end, we got to the end of book 2, beginning of book 3, which was the final book, and I really started to feel that lack of emotional connection, and I felt myself just not really caring in moments when I maybe should have cared a lot more. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this series because it flies by. It goes really fast. There's a lot of things going on. Some people say that there's too much going on. I didn't find that, but you do get bounced around a lot between the different things that Lark is doing throughout the series. But I would definitely recommend it. I had a very good time with this. It's just not something I super emotionally connected with. The next book I read was The Professor by Skye Warren. This was a 2.75 for me. I didn't have the highest expectations going into this because the tropes that this follows aren't my preferred that I found so far. It's one night stand and then also ex-boyfriend's dad, which ex-boyfriend's dad I don't have a problem with, but one night stand I find typically is more insta-lovey than anything else. But basically the premise of this is the main character, Anne, she is very poor and she's going to college. She decides to sell herself for a night, and there she meets this dark, brooding, handsome man, and they hit it off really well. They have really good chemistry, which I will say the chemistry was written really well. She gets paid at the end of the night and they go their separate ways. She makes more than she thought she was going to, and so she's really set. She goes to school and she finds out that the man that she had that night with is her new professor. This book just goes on with them battling their urges a little bit, but also not really at all. She's a scholarship student, but she still can't afford certain things because she doesn't have any money. Throughout the whole book, we are told over and over and over again that she needs to keep her scholarships, that she can't do anything that's going to jeopardize that. But she does over and over again. We also get introduced to some secret society elements throughout the book, which in all honesty, I did not find very interesting. I like a school setting sometimes if it's more of a college football romance, but if it's more of an academic college setting, it's not something that usually grips me. So if that is your type, I think you could maybe like this, but it wasn't necessarily for me because I didn't find the secret society stuff very interesting, and it also really bothered me that she just kept going against everything that she was saying over and over again. There was nothing bad about this book. I just don't think it was something that I really meshed with, and because of that, it lost me a little bit throughout the way, and so I did find myself bored for a decent chunk of the book just because it's not something I would typically gravitate towards. The next book that I read in May was Wronged by Rin Sher. Let's go with that. I rated this a 3.75. I really liked this book, and I think if you liked Archer's voice, this would be a really good read for you. So basically, the book follows Remy, and she is running away from her life a little bit. In all honesty, I do not remember what she was running from. But she moves to this small town, and in this small town, there is this guy named Jacob, and she meets him working at this little corner store, and he is the town outcast. Everybody hates him. Everybody says that he is this horrible human being because he was charged with rape of a minor when he was 18. This did not happen, okay? So if you hear that and go into it thinking, oh, we're gonna read about a redemption story of a rapist, that's not the case. He was falsely accused, but everybody in this town thinks that he did rape this girl when he was in high school. So he is trying to keep a low profile. He's trying to just exist in this town, but he's not having any luck because nobody will give him a chance. But so he's just keeping his head down. But Remy is very curious about him. She sees him, she thinks that she can peel back the layers and figure out what's going on underneath. And I will say, it is a really nice story. He has very, very big trust issues for good reason because this town tortures him. They're horrible to him. But this book just didn't really make me feel what I wanted it to. It had so much potential to really pull on my heartstrings, and it didn't really. So I think this has the potential to be really amazing. It just wasn't really for me. But again, I think that this is something I would reread down the line. It is possible too that I was just in kind of a slumpy mood and I wasn't feeling this kind of book. So give it a try because I would recommend this book. There was nothing wrong with it, and I think if you're wanting a more adult version of Archer's voice, this is definitely something that you might like. So the next book I read in May was If You Give a Single Dad a Nanny by Anne Einerson. This was a 2.75. It was not the best book of the month, but I do think a lot of people would like it. I feel like single dad nanny trope is not always, it's not something I'm ever drawn to, but it is something I do tend to enjoy. But this one just didn't really hit for me. So basically the premise of this is Dylan gets a new neighbor. Her name is Marlo, and she is the polar opposite of him. Whereas he is very grumpy and broody and very to himself, Marlo is very loud. She's very out there. She's very bright and colorful. She wears a lot of bright colors. She's very outgoing. She paints for a living. She is a very outgoing, bubbly personality, whereas Dylan is a lot more closed off. And Dylan's daughter, Lola, is head over heels in love with Marlo and her dog, Waffles. So they build up a relationship, Lola and Marlo, over I think a year. And when Dylan's nanny quits, he's left very high and dry. So Lola asks him, Marlo needs a job. Can you please hire her for me? Because I already love her so much. She lives right next door. Please. So Marlo is very interested. Dylan is very hesitant because he has a very big crush on Marlo. And Marlo also has a very big crush on Dylan. They start this arrangement and it is very cute. I will say this. Dylan makes them breakfast every morning, Marlo and Lola. And he writes everyone little notes, including Marlo. And it's just a very cute book. That being said, I was so bored at the middle, or I think towards the end of the book. Nothing happened. I was very bored at the end of this, and so it just, I don't know what happened. I don't know why I kind of detached from this, but when cute things were happening towards the end, I just didn't really care anymore. So I would be reading a really cute moment where he would be building her up, where he would be telling her how worthy of love she is, and usually those kind of scenes would really get to me, but it just didn't, because I'd already kind of like detached from the book. That being said, this was my book club book for the month with my friends, and a lot of people in the book club really did like it. So my friend and I were the 2 lowest ratings, but we had people rated up to 4.5 stars. So I think if single dad nanny trope, if small town is your bag, I think you will really like this. Please give it a chance. We are now going on to the complete opposite end of the spectrum for reads with Lord of Bones by Aiden Pierce. I really enjoyed this one. It was a 4-star. This just really hooked me. It went really quickly. I binged it in a day. So the plot of this basically is Raven is a grave robber, and she does that with her boyfriend, but one day she decides to rob the wrong grave, who is protected by Belial, who is basically the Lord of Bones. He is the first god of hell, so he controls limbo, basically, and he decides, you have screwed with the wrong person, so I'm gonna drag you down to hell with me. So throughout this, we see their connection, and we also see him pretending to be somebody else to win her favor, and it is very good. You really fall in love with the person that he is pretending to be, and deep down it is him. He just has this very firm exterior that he has to be as the Lord of Bones. But basically, as the Lord of Bones, he gives her 3 days. If she can figure out how to escape hell in 3 days, he will let her go. But if she doesn't, she has to be his queen. So I read this, it's a duology, and I really enjoyed this. The second one I rated 3.75 stars. It was really good. It was a lot more action-packed, I found. We also got to see a lot more of his brothers in the second one, which was really cool. Definitely check your trigger warnings with this one. I think so far that's the only one that you really need to check trigger warnings for, but just to be safe, if you have them, check them for all of the books that I've mentioned or will mention, please. So with this one, I really enjoyed it. The end of the second book did lose me a little bit. It didn't, not the end, I just got a little bit bored towards the end and I stopped caring a little bit. And that's the thing with this as well, is that it just didn't really hook me, I don't think. I was really intrigued, but it didn't hook my heart. It didn't emotionally hook me. But I would 100% recommend this. I had a lot of fun with this, so please pick this one up. The next book I read was A Court This Cruel and Lovely by Stasia Stark. I rated this 3.5 stars. I don't entirely know how I feel about this. So with this, I did really enjoy this, but again, it just didn't really make me feel anything. So the plot of this one is there is this girl, I don't remember her name. It was a little bit forgettable, if I'm entirely honest. And she lives in this town and in this world, really, where there's a lot of different elements going on. There are fae, and then there are what's called the corrupt. Basically, when you're born in this world, you have magical powers, but the gods need to take your powers to protect your village from the creatures that linger out there, like the corrupt, which are basically people who haven't given up their powers. They've somehow evaded the gods and kept their powers and are very dangerous. And then there's also fae that are outside. So they need to take your powers when you're a baby, and then you have a choosing ceremony when you get your powers back. The corrupt is when, after your powers are given back to you, they realize that you actually had them all along, that you've somehow evaded the gods, and then your family is murdered and you are killed as well. The FMC, I don't remember her name. She is corrupt. So she somehow managed to keep her powers, and she is just about at the age where they are going to do the ceremony that's going to give her her powers back. But she accidentally uses her powers one day and has to run away a lot sooner than she planned. So she's all alone, and she stumbles across this group of mercenaries led by this man named Lorien. He is very cold, he's very rude, he's very forceful. But amongst the mercenaries, there's all of these other characters who are really lovely, and you fall in love with them. The best part of the book, by a mile, was when she was with the mercenaries. It was everything. It was so much fun. They had such a great dynamic, and basically, her power is she can stop time. So the mercenaries want her to stop time so they can sneak into this kingdom or sneak into this village, take what they need, and then come out safely without being detected. So she agrees to help them as long as they help her. So I did really enjoy this. I loved when she was with the mercenaries, but again, it just wasn't anything revolutionary for me, and it didn't leave a super lasting impression, and it also didn't really make me feel anything. You know, I will say Lorien is a very attractive MMC. He's very well written. He definitely knows how to make a woman swoon in the book, and also when you're reading about him. So the chemistry was definitely there between them, and it was very, very well done. This just wasn't anything that really stood out to me. The next book that I read was Don't You Dare, and also the second book in that duology, which is Never Will I Ever. So these are two completely separate things. The only connection that they have is you are introduced to the main character in Never Will I Ever, or the main characters in Don't You Dare. So Don't You Dare, I rated this 4 stars. This is a reread for me, and in all honesty, I was a little bit disappointed with it because I remember loving this read the first time I read it. I don't remember what I rated it. I think I rated it about a 4.5, 4.75, something like that. And I absolutely loved it. And so going into this, I was very, very excited. But it just didn't really live up to the expectations that I had. It's still an amazing book, do not get me wrong. Basically, Don't You Dare follows Aspen and Keen, and they are best friends, and they have been best friends their entire lives. And we get a glimpse of their friendship initially in a past chapter where they're doing a drinking game, and it's called Don't You Dare. So they're asked, don't you dare to do something. So Keen and Aspen are asked, don't you dare kiss each other. And so they do it, and for Keen, this opens his eyes. This makes him realize I'm bisexual, and I'm very, very attracted to my best friend Aspen. But he doesn't say anything, and years go by, they continue on as they were, but Keen has the secret that I am bisexual, that I am very attracted to my best friend, and I don't know what to do about it. So one day, Aspen finds out that Keen is on a gay dating site, and he finds out that he also hasn't done anything with men because he's too nervous. And so Aspen, being the good best friend that he is, decides, oh, let me help Keen explore and let me help him get comfortable so that when he finds that person he wants to be with, he will be ready. And of course they fall in love with each other, obviously. So this book was really good, and it hooked me from the beginning. I was so hooked. The chemistry was there. It was amazing, but the hook didn't last. I wanted to love this so badly. I just disconnected for some reason, and I don't know why. I was so hooked, but eventually the hook went away, and I didn't know really what happened. And don't get me wrong, I still have a lot of love for these characters. I still really, really enjoy this book, and I think it is definitely a book that I'm going to reread. Thinking about this book now, it's not something that I'm going to actively think about when I think, oh, my favorite books. It's probably not going to come to mind. But if I ever want to reread a friends to lovers romance, I think this is a book that I will revisit. Never Will I Ever. I rated this 3.5 stars. It wasn't my favorite. When we meet Avery in Don't You Dare, he is a very rude, very angry person. And so I was kind of expecting we see that in Never Will I Ever, because it is kind of his redemption. He does some really bad things in Don't You Dare, and so in Never Will I Ever, this is his chance to redeem himself to us, basically, and also to himself. And I just felt like we didn't see the person from Don't You Dare at all. Usually in these kind of redemption books, you'll see the anger, you'll see them at the beginning before they start redeeming themselves, you'll see how they were, and then you see them kind of grow. We didn't see him really change from that angry, horrible person into his best version of himself. So that I kind of struggled with a little bit, because I didn't think that his redemption, also his arc, was as well done as it necessarily could have been. With Caleb, I did really like him. I thought that they did have a really nice relationship. I thought that Caleb was really accepting of what Avery was struggling with. That being said, it just didn't really hit for me. as much as other books have this month. There were a lot of moments where Avery was really struggling, where we saw him open up finally, and it was really nice, but it didn't tug at my heartstrings all that much as I would have liked it to. So those are all of the books that I read in May. Overall, numbers-wise, this was a very good reading month for me. It was 14 books. Usually I read somewhere between like 10 and 16. I'm on the higher end of the spectrum for sure, and I'm very happy with that. But ratings-wise and how I felt about the books, I don't think this was necessarily a standout month for me. And so I'm hoping June will be better. I'm crossing my fingers there. But I do have some books that I'm very excited to read in June for sure. Starting off very strong, I'm doing my Windy City reread for Rewind It Back, and I cannot wait. I'm so excited. I've been wanting to do this for so long, but I had some books that were higher priority on my TBR at the time when Rewind It Back came out, and I'm finally able to get going on that, and I am so excited. So I'll give you a little plot summary for each book, just in case you haven't heard of it or you need a bit of a refresher. So Mile High, which is book 1 in the Windy City series, it follows Stevie and Xanders, and Xanders is the playboy of the NHL. He is the guy that everybody loves to hate. He's the guy with the new girl on his arm every night. And enter Stevie. She is the sister of a very famous NBA player who book 2 is about, and she starts working as a flight attendant on Xander's plane, and they clash immediately. It's so much flirty banter, and it's everything, and I've read this already. So it is just very good. A lot of people I've seen so far choose to skip this book, or they don't necessarily like it. I would not recommend that. This sets up the series so well. It introduces the characters in the next book. It introduces the character in book 5 as well, and it just gives you a really good introduction to the first couple people that you really need to know in the coming books. You get to meet Rio for the first time, who book 5 is about, and you really fall in love with Rio in these first couple snippets that you get of him, and you really start to root for him. So even if you want to skip Mile High, please don't. It is very good. So the next book is The Right Move, which is Ryan, who is Stevie's brother, and Indy, who is the girl that Stevie meets on the plane and becomes very fast friends with. I'm not going to say what exactly their situation is, because you find out about it in Mile High, and I don't want to spoil it, but there is some fake dating, there is some forced proximity, and it is very good. Ryan Shea is known as a lot of people's #1 book boyfriend, and I completely understand that. He's very acts of service. He loves to do the little things for you. He gives you that quiet love that not a lot of people talk about, where he just is there for you in every sense of the word, and he builds you up, and he makes you feel like yourself so wholeheartedly, and just makes you embrace who you actually are. And Xanders and Stevie do this really well in Mile High as well. That's one thing about these books that they do so well, is they make sure that the MCs really fall in love with themselves as well as each other. So I would really recommend this whole series. The Right Move is really good, and Indy, I didn't talk about her, but she is the main female character, and she is very proudly like other girls. She is very basic, and she loves that about herself. She likes that she's like other people, but she also has so much depth to her. She has so much that she feels, and she's also very smart. So I think that she is very high up there for a lot of people for favorite book girlfriends. The next book is Caught Up, which follows Kai Rhodes, who we meet in The Right Move. He's an MLB player, so he plays baseball, and he is a single dad, and he meets Miller, and she is his coach's daughter, and the coach hires her as Kai's son's nanny because he keeps hiring and firing nannies. He cannot hold on to anybody, and so he's having to take his son everywhere with him. So he says, "You are hiring my daughter as your nanny, and you cannot fire her because I am your boss." And they fall in love, and it is wonderful because Miller is she's a very free spirit. She doesn't like to settle down, and so we see her fall in love with Max, who is Kai's son, and it is so beautiful. It is so beautiful. And so please This one is a lot of people's favorite, and for good reason. The next book is Play Along, and that is Kai's brother Isaiah. And Isaiah is also a baseball player, and he is hopelessly in love with Miss Kennedy Kay, who is his physiotherapist on the baseball team. And she, for the longest time, has been engaged to somebody else, so he'll flirt with her, he'll be friendly with her, but he knows that it's not going to go anywhere. But one day, she comes to work, and there's no ring on her finger. So he gets his hopes real high up, and he tries so hard to be with her, and it is so wonderful. And one night, they wake up, they're in Vegas, and they have gotten married. So this one is a very good book. Kennedy, from what I can remember, she has never really been made to feel very special, but Isaiah's entire world revolves around her. And so this is a book where if you want to feel someone loved wholeheartedly, this whole series, honestly, is just wholehearted, complete, utter devotion and love, and just every emotion under the sun. They feel it so wholeheartedly and so all-encompassing. It's everything. And Rewind It Back, it's the final book in the series. She's recently announced, she being the author, has recently announced that Monty, who is Miller from book 3's dad and the coach of Kai and Isaiah, is getting a book. So we're getting spin-off to Windy City, which I'm very excited about. But Rewind It Back is book 5, and it is Rio's book, and it is, I have not read this, so I'm going based off what I've seen online, based off the tropes that I've read. It is, it's always been you, it's childhood, friends to lovers to possibly enemies to acquaintances to neighbors. So basically, Rio is the last of the friend group that is single. He is very in desperate need of love, but he's already had it before. He fell in love with Hallie when he was younger, and something happened that tore them apart, and now she moves in right next door, and she is the one that is working on his house to do the renovations for it. So it's very forced proximity. It's always been you, or so I've heard. But this is a book that I have been so excited about ever since I met Rio, and I cannot wait to read this. So I am very, very excited about this series, and this is something I've wanted to read for so long. And so finally being here, I could not be happier. The next book is Silent Vows. It's by Jill Ramsauer. But basically, Connor is a member of the Irish mob, and he has been in arranged marriages before, but he always turns them down. So enter Naomi. She is mute, and Connor agrees to marry her because he thinks that she will kind of just disappear and not really be present in his life because she can't speak. So saying it out loud like that sounds horrible, but apparently she is very strong-willed, she's very out there, and she really puts Connor in his place. So I'm very excited to see how that dynamic would work. I've also never read a mute female main character, so I'm very intrigued by that, and it's something I'm very excited to check out. The next book is Devil's Thirst. Again, this is a dark romance, and this is one that also sounds bad when you say it out loud. Emily lives next door to Sante. I also could be not pronouncing both of these names wrong, so I apologize. So she lives next door to Sante, and he gives her a ride home one day, and after that, he gets completely obsessed with her. He starts stalking her, he starts inserting himself into every aspect of her life, and eventually it leads to him declaring to both of their families that she will be his wife. So I'm assuming there's some kind of blackmail in there, but honestly, I am very excited to check it out. I do love a toxic romance, so I think that it's not necessarily a good thing, but I am very excited to check it out and see what it is about. The next one is One Good Move by Lily Miller. Sierra and Grayson, they have a one-night stand, and it's amazing. They feel all the things for each other, but they both agree, we're never going to see each other again. We're not going to do anything about it. 2 years later, however, she meets her brother's new best friend, and it is Grayson, and he is also her neighbor. I haven't heard anything about this one. I haven't heard anything about a lot of the books that I'm about to mention, but they all sound very good, so I'm very excited to check them out. The next one is New Moon by J.J. King. I have never heard anything about this series, but I found a special edition that is beautiful, so I want to read it for that. I'm reading based on the cover, basically, for this one. Elena transfers to a new school. This is a shifter romance. There's a lot of werewolves. I don't know if there's other creatures. There might be vampires. There might be fae. But there's for sure werewolves. So Elena transfers to this elite shifter academy. It's called the Alpha Wolf Academy. And she does not fit in at all. Nobody wants her to fit in there. Everything is very well established in these groups that exist so far in the school. And so she is very much the odd one out. But enter Sebastian. He is very dark. He's tall, he's handsome, he's very brooding, but he lets her in. He helps her find someone that she belongs with there. That being said, Sebastian's sister really has it out for Elena. I'm very excited about that one. I hope that it's good. I've just been very curious about this, so I'm hoping for the best. The next one is Ever the Same by Stephanie Blaze. This one follows Callan and Colby, and basically they meet when they're kids, they become best friends, they fall in love, and then tragedy tears them apart. And so when they meet again, down the line, years later, will they find their way back to each other? This one, again, I don't know anything about this. I haven't heard anything about this. There's also very few reviews for this, so hopefully I will find a hidden gem here. I'm very excited. This one also has a beautiful cover that I want, so I'm hoping for the best here, and I'm very excited about this. The next two, I'm very, very, very excited about. They're both by Donna Lamb, and the first one is To Have and to Hate. It follows Olivia and Beckett, and based on what I can see, Olivia runs a rival company against Beckett, and he finds a way to kind of tank her company. So he blackmails her. I will let your company keep going if you marry me. And I am a sucker for marriage of convenience. It's one of my favorite tropes for a reason, and I absolutely adore it. I cannot wait to read this one. I'm very excited. The next book on my TBR is No Romeo, also by Donna Lamb. Eve finds out on her wedding day that her fiance is cheating on her, so she runs away. She runs into the arms of her ex-fiance, Nemesis, and he kind of saves her in a sense because when she was getting married, she was also getting her visa. But now that she's not getting married, she might get deported. So Oliver offers, I will marry you and help you get your visa if you help me sabotage and humiliate and take down your ex-fiance. And so she agrees, and I'm just very excited about that. I love marriage of convenience. I love forced marriage. So the fact that I'm getting two of these this month is very exciting to me, and I'm very, very happy. The next one is Follow the River by C.E. Ritchie. I have heard very mixed things about this, so I'm a little bit nervous, but I have read some of C.E. Ritchie's books before, and I have really enjoyed them. Don't You Dare was by C.E. Ritchie, and same with Never Will I Ever. So this book follows River, and he is the quarterback of his football team. I think it's set in college. It could be high school. I might be wrong. But he is the quarterback of the football team, and he is very out and proud, and he's bisexual, and I think he's just found that out, but he is very confident in himself, and he knows himself very well. So enter Kieran. He and River start fighting immediately. They clash instantly. Know why. But he is the team's newest addition, and then eventually they're kind of forced together. They're thrown into a situation that neither of them want to be in, which involves them being together. And lines start to blur between hate and love and lust. And I'm very excited about this one. It's a duet. I'm really hoping for the best here because I think out of all of C.E. Ritchie's books, this is the most loved. So it's also the most hated, it seems like. So I'm nervous, but I'm also very excited. But with this one, if you decide to pick it up, please definitely check your triggers because there's a lot. And it doesn't seem like, at least based on some of the reviews I've read, that she necessarily puts all of them in her book. So I would do some research with that for sure to make sure that you're not reading anything that you're not comfortable with. The next and final book on my TBR is Caught Up by Nevessa Allen. I was one of the people that fell into the Lights Out hype, and I'm so happy that I did because that audiobook was phenomenal. It was unfortunately the first one that I ever listened to, and nothing has lived up to the expectations of audiobooks that has set. So if you have any recommendations for audiobooks, please leave them down below because I have not found one like it since. Caught Up, I don't know anything about this. I know that it follows Junior, who is the main girl's cousin, I want to say, in Lights Out. But aside from that, I don't know anything about it. I am just very excited about the fact that I get another Nafessa Allen audiobook. And this is also my book club book for the month of June. So I am very excited to read that. So that concludes both my wrap up and my TBR. Going forward, for the next month or two, I have very structured TBRs because I'm going to a book event, so I'm wanting to read as many authors from that event as I can so I can kind of dip my toe into new people, figure out what kind of stuff I like also. And that's a really good part of this as well, is I'm not typically a romantasy reader, but I am reading a lot more of it lately, and it has been very nice. So I'm hoping that this event gives me an excuse to do more of that. So that is the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you sticking with me until the end if you have. The next video will hopefully be out next Wednesday. That is the goal. I would like to stay consistent with that. So I hope you follow along with me. I'm hoping to do quite a few series on here. I would like to do some kind of tackle my TBR series. I'm hoping to get a couple 24-hour readathons in there. So I hope that you join me going forward, and I hope that you have a lovely rest of your day, my loves.